The first trailer for X-Men Dark Phoenix has been released, and unsurprisingly, there's a lot of anger, sadness, and foreshadowing packed into the 2-minute clip. And we've watched it a whole bunch of times to help you uncover all the small details and hints you might have missed. Power Flare. X-Men fans will notice that the trailer boasts a shot of familiar X-Jet the Blackbird, hurtling through space and looking a bit out of control. In the issues leading up to the original Chris Claremont-penned comic arc known as the Dark Phoenix Saga, the X-Men plummet to Earth in a damaged ship piloted by Jean Grey. Jean is unable to shield herself entirely from solar radiation, and the resulting injury and crash landing led to the birth of the Phoenix, sort of Jean and sort of not Jean. It's complicated. In an interview with Entertainment Weekly, writer and director Simon Kinberg confirmed that in Dark Phoenix, the X-Men do go to space where they're hit by a solar flare that sparks an unexpected change in Jean. The trailer seemingly offers a glimpse of this moment when we see a shot of what appears to be the solar flare right on the tail of the X-Jet. Catching Fire. We saw Sophie Turner's Jean first tap into her fiery Phoenix powers at the end of X-Men Apocalypse. In the Dark Phoenix trailer, we're treated to several shots of Jean aflame. One shows her completely engulfed in a fire that appears to get drawn into her body. She's sporting an X uniform, so it's possible this shot comes from the scene when Jean is overcome by the solar flare. We're treated to a few other moments when fire burns in the irises of Jean's blue eyes as she embraces her newfound powers, as in the final shot of the trailer when flame veins creep over her face. We also saw Famke Janssen's Jean grappling with her Phoenix powers throughout The Last Stand. That Jean failed to control the cosmic force. Will this Jean have a better outcome? The title card at the end of the trailer seems a bit foreshadowing and shows a vaguely Phoenix-shaped flicker of light behind a group of clouds. Island Retreat. In the late 2017, it was confirmed that Dark Phoenix would take Jean to the island of Genosha, where Magneto has set up a sort of mutant refugee home. As in the comics, the big-screen version of Magneto is more complicated than your average villain, with his struggles against the X-Men often coming down to opposing ideologies more than a truly evil moral code. Genosha offers another example of his efforts to aid mutant kind. Genosha is a well-traveled location for mutants in the source comics, first appearing in 1988 as a wealthy island nation that achieved its riches by exploiting the mutants born there as slaves. Magneto has taken over the island before in the 1999 limited series Magneto Rex, during which he also converted it into a haven for mutants. Home Free. Kinberg makes his directorial debut with Dark Phoenix, and based on what we see in this trailer, Kinberg revisits key moments we saw in The Last Stand, which he also wrote. Rumor has it that studio pressure led to much of his script for that film being edited down, sidelining Jean in the process. In Dark Phoenix, Kinberg appears to bring Jean back to her childhood home as she struggles to restrain her emerging Phoenix powers, as he did in his script for The Last Stand.
You have more power than you can imagine, Jean. The question is, will you control that power?
Here, we see Jean confront the X-Men in the street outside a house in a suburban neighborhood. It's likely this marks a turning point in the film, as the symbolism of Jean destroying the home of her late parents can't be denied in the context of a film that centers on her struggle to retain her identity in the face of her increasingly unrestrained power. Sharp-dressed team. During that face-off with her X-Men teammates, we're treated to our first clear, long shot of the new X uniforms, and it should be a very welcome sight for longtime fans of the comic series. The design is nearly identical to the revamped look, drawn by renowned artist Frank Quietly, for Grant Morrison's influential take on the franchise, which was published as the New X-Men series starting in 2001. This series also dealt with happenings on the island of Genosha, but only time will tell whether the new X-Men influence on Dark Phoenix stretches beyond costuming, or if this is simply a nod to the character's illustrious history on the page. Cross X-amination. Throughout the Dark Phoenix trailer, Professor X's handling of Jean and her link to her Phoenix power is questioned by those closest to him.
What did you do?
I had to keep her stable.
I protected her.
Mystique isn't the only blue mutant who questions Professor X's judgment on the matter. Later, we see Hank McCoy confronting the professor and telling him that it's all his fault. Whatever Hank is blaming Charles for, it's clearly pretty serious, because a still later shot shows the professor in a standoff opposite Magneto and several of his mutant team. And who's among them but McCoy in his beast form? What could drive this intelligent, measured academic to take up with Magneto against his mentor and friend? A close-up of Hank pressing his anguished blue face to Mystique's may hold the answer. In The Last Stand, Jean's powers truly moved beyond her control following her murder of Cyclops and the Professor. Could her turning point in Dark Phoenix come when her power leads to the death of Mystique, which leads a heartbroken Beast toward the dark side as well? Mystery Blonde. A closely guarded secret of Dark Phoenix is the identity of Jessica Chastain's character. The studio has been tight-lipped, with Kinberg revealing only that her character is way smarter than we are. What she realizes is she can use Jean Grey to manipulate this world to turn it against itself. Fans have theorized the unknown woman to be a version of Mastermind, the mutant who invaded Jean's mind to brainwash her further toward the dark side in the comics. This was shot down by Kinberg, who did concede there are elements of the way Mastermind manipulates Jean that Jessica's character does employ. You'll see that Jessica's character has elements of a few different characters from the comics. Fans wondered if one of those characters could be Lilandra, the Shi'ar Empress who's been entwined in the story of the Dark Phoenix throughout several of Marvel's comic continuities. Fans have also speculated that she could be based on Emma Frost, aka the White Queen, a telepath who also appeared in the Dark Phoenix saga. Of course, January Jones already portrayed Emma Frost in X-Men First Class, so who knows if that will be the case. Dark Duds. Speaking of Mastermind, one of the most campy and visually striking moments from the Dark Phoenix saga is Jean Grey's Black Queen identity, which she takes on as a result of Mastermind's mental manipulations. A shot later in the trailer shows Jean wearing a dark leather jacket with a raised collar, along with a more dramatic hairstyle and earrings. We see her in a similar getup in her earlier clip, speaking to Chastain in the church. Could this be a modified Black Queen ensemble, a subtle nod to the change in outfit from the original comics?